in case you're wondering later. That's calling people out. You're welcome. You're welcome. Okay, I just want to make sure that she saw what that actually was. Okay. So this is going to be broken up into a couple of different pieces, and we're going to kind of construct a framed mindset is what we're trying to do. So we're going to do a little bit of explanation this week. Next week, we're going to do an expository teaching, which I know all you guys probably love expository teachings. Next week on Luke chapter 21, verses 34 through 36 specifically. I don't do expository teachings mainly because I nerd out on those, and it's hard for me to stay focused on the topic because I usually go in like 1,000 different directions. I get so excited because we're talking about history and facts and truth, and I love all those things. So that will be next week, I think. Anyways, an expository teaching is coming up, and then we'll get back to how to tie it all together and actually live it out. So Luke chapter 21, beginning in verse 10. And then he told them, who's he? Right, how do you know that? And all the letters and all the words after are in red, right? So we know it. This was Jesus, right? Okay, so nation will rise up against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be violent earthquakes and famines and plagues in various places. There will be terrifying sights and great signs from heaven. But before all these things, they will lay their hands on you and persecute you. They will hand you over to the synagogues, the prisons. You will be brought before kings and governors because of my name. And it will lead to an opportunity for you to witness. That's the key part of that, by the way. Oh, yeah. Exactly. Therefore, make up your minds not to prepare your defense ahead of time. For I will give you such words and wisdom that none of your adversaries will be able to resist or contradict. You will even be betrayed by your parents, your brothers, your relatives, and your friends. Time is coming, my friends. And they will kill some of you. You will be hated by everyone because of my name. But not a hair in your head will be lost. By your endurance, gain your lives. When you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, then recognize that its desolation has come near. Then those in Judea must flee to the mountains. Those inside the city must leave it. Those who are in the country must not enter it, because these are the days of vengeance, to fulfill all the things that are written. Woe to the pregnant woman and nursing mothers in those days, for there will be great distress in the land and wrath against these people. They will fall by the edge of the sword and be led captive into all the nations, and Jerusalem will be trampled by the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles are fulfilled. Verse 25, then there will be signs in the sun, the moon, the stars. There will be anguish on the earth among nations, bewildered by the roaring seas and waves. People will faint from fear and expectation of the things that are coming on the world, because the celestial powers will be shaken. Then they will see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. But when these things begin to take place, stand up and lift up your heads, because your redemption is near. Verse 29. And then he told them a parable. Look at the fig tree and all the trees. As soon as they put out leaves, you can see for yourselves and recognize that summer is already near. In the same way, when you see these things happening, recognize that the kingdom of God is near. I assure you, this generation will certainly not pass away until all things take place. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my world will never pass away. How long is a generation in Jesus' time? Does anybody know? Say it again. 40 years. That is correct. Interesting little piece there, but let's keep going. Verse 34. Our focus verses are coming up now. Be on your guard. Be on your guard, so that your minds are not dulled from carousing and drunkenness and the worries of life. For that day will come on you expectantly like a trap, for it will come to all who live on the face of the whole earth. But be alert at all times, praying that you may have strength to escape all these things that are going to take place and stand before the Son of Man. We're also going to read another scripture. And you're probably wondering, which one? Pastor Jason, you should have your crap together. We pay you that you do this. Hebrews 6, please. Hebrews chapter 6. Hebrews chapter 6. We're going to do verses 1 through 3. Hebrews chapter 6, verses 1 through 3. And I'm going to read it in the American Standard. No, I'm not, because I hate the American Standard. We're going to read it in the Passion, just for the heck of it. Now is the time for us to progress beyond the basic message of Christ and advance into perfection. The foundation has already been laid for us to build upon, turning away from our dead works to embrace faith in God, teaching about different baptisms, impartations of the laying on of hands, resurrection of the dead, eternal judgment. So with God's enablement, we will move on to deeper truths. Other translations call the laying on of hands, resurrection of the dead, and eternal judgments elementary teachings, basic, kindergarten. Most Christians spend their entire life barely scratching the surface of one of those. Time is coming where I think that lukewarm is being shaken out of the church. And I'm okay with it. I'm sad, but I'm okay with it. It's taking me a little while to be okay with it. Where most of us are forced to really examine what we believe, to examine if it holds water or weight. Those of us brought up in the church are stuck somewhere between frustrated with our parents' journey and all the BS we grew up with, struggling to understand what truth is, and knowing, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that we hold ourselves back because we're not ignorant. Those who came into the church probably have it a little bit easier for the very first time, I think, than those who grew up in the church, because your passion and your fire is unquenchable. You already came out of it. You haven't been saved from it. You didn't avoid it. You didn't pat yourself on the back for good speech and good moderated behavior. You came out of hell and fire, and you found a place to land. Maybe it's time that us who have been in the church for a while start learning from those who just came in. Maybe it's time for those who think of themselves as somehow more educated or far beyond the rest of Christendom because of our time spent in, should learn from the children. Should learn what it's like to be excited for God rescuing us and saving us. Cynicism has no place at the children of God, and it's really sad to hear cynicism come out of Christians' mouths, those who definitely should know better. And I thought about all of that because I find myself being somewhat cynical now and again. In fact, I honestly don't think you can be a pastor and not eventually become cynical. I think that's the worst part for me. That makes me sad. But we're all a little cynical, aren't we? A little cynical about how far our dollars are going to get, a little cynical about what the next 10 years looks like, a little cynical about this and that. This, I propose to you, is a really exciting time to be alive. And that we can change the course of history. That church is set up better than any other edifice to do that. The problem is we rightly and justifiably are owed the ear that we are getting right now. We've been judgmental. We've told people how to think. We've told people how they should talk. We've told people what words they can and can't use. And they called us hypocrite, rightfully so. Now, the shoe's on the other foot for the very first time. In my entire life, in 50 years of being alive, I've never seen the shoe switch so quickly. So the question becomes, what are we going to do? What are we going to do, children of God? What are we supposed to do? So what does that mean? What if they don't believe in God? What if they're gay? Right. What if they're trans? What if they like to do really nasty things with hamsters? Hey. There's no exceptional clause, right? But some people are proud of their stuff. Phone, car. The list goes on and on. All these different hurdles, all these different things in front of us. So the question is, if we can't handle temptation, is it a faith question? Is it a wisdom question? Is it a self-control question? Yes? Maybe? To all of them? I remember somebody talking to me when we were in the lockdown. And this statement, if I could take this statement back, I think I would. It's one of the first times I can think of where I regretted saying something. And people are like thinking of any kind of quarrels that we might have had in the last 3 years. That's not it. Nope, don't regret it. That's just called life, processing and growing, conflict resolution. I embrace it. Love it. Love the venture. Love the journey. What I do, though, regret saying, and I think it was either Cassie or Hannah. It was during the lockdown, one of them said something about how much everybody has already changed. And it had been like 4 months since we were in the lockdown. And I said something like, my God, if all it takes is being locked up in the house for 6 or 4 months for people to change, how weak are we? I just can't believe that we'd be that weak or that messed up that it only takes that for us to regress. Like, I just disagree. I don't remember which one of you said it, and you probably don't remember saying it. But I was wrong. Yes, that was the right thing to say. I was wrong. It only took 4 months for people to change. Maybe less. There's fear, uncertainty. We're Christians. Our faith should have been better than that. My faith should have been better than that. And if I go before the Lord right now, that would be the only thing that I can think. I would be so embarrassed to be in front of him, and I would want to hide my face because my faith wasn't. I caught up in it just like everybody else. I'm struggling with hate and anger like I never have to this day. And what a great world we live in, because it gives you opportunity to exercise your forgiveness muscle and your faith muscle. And what a father who would look at his people and recognize a time is coming and say, I'm going to prepare you the best way I know how. I'm going to stretch you until you can't do this without me. Until you either walk away or you come closer than you've ever been. Like, is this a time where, like Gideon, where the army needed to be separated? Are you drinking from your hand? Are you shoving your face in the water? Are you running, or are you cleaving to? It's still not, like, you don't have to have it figured out. You don't have to be doing it right, but are you cleaving to God or the stuff that the world finds attractive? Like, at the end of the day, I can tell which. Can you? Can you? Because if you cleave into the world's situations, if you cleave into the world's way of doing things, if you cleave into their theologies, their philosophies, their stuff, you're a mess. And it's obvious that you're a mess. It should be obvious to you, though. Let's turn our Bibles to another scripture. I know, we're a church. It's hard to believe we're doing this. Let's turn in your Bibles, please, to Ephesians chapter 3, beginning in verse 8. And then we'll get on with the actual opening. Chapter 3, beginning in verse 8. This grace was given to me, the least of all saints, to proclaim to the Gentiles the incalculable riches of the Messiah, and, to shed the light for all about the administration of the mystery hidden for ages in God who created all things. This is so God's multifaceted wisdom may be made known through the church to the rulers and the authorities of heaven. This is according to his eternal purpose accomplished in the Messiah, Jesus our Lord. In him we have the boldness, the confidence to access faith in him. So then, I ask you not to be discouraged over my afflictions on your behalf, for they are your glory. I'd like to propose to you tonight that every single stretch that you Christians are going through is for his glory. Every uncomfortable situation you've been through for the last 4 months is for his glory. so that you may prove his perfect will, so that you might rise up as a holy nation, a royal priesthood. We pat ourselves on the back for mediocrity Christianity and think that's enough. It's not, according to the scriptures. It's the thing that gets you spit out. And you can believe that God wouldn't do that, but he wrote it in the Bibles. He had it written down for us. So it's kind of important. We are in a transitional time. This will go down in history as pivotal as World War II, World War I. And you don't understand that? Some of you were unfortunately kept from history. So you don't know what you don't know, and I get that. I'm only recently aware of that. So I am also apologizing for talking sometimes in a way that's unfair to you guys because you don't know what you don't know. And I know how that sounds, but I'm telling you, you missed out on a lot of really good logic and wisdom because you were kept from true history. And I'm really, really sorry that all you were taught was hate, mean stuff, unfair stuff, all the ways that makes everything look bad. So your lens, your filter is already distorted from like kindergarten probably or first grade with all the negativity and all the stress and all the drama and how horrible and unfair everything is. Life's unfair, children. It's called life. It's not supposed to be fair. That's bullshit, pie in the sky, Barney crap. It's like everybody's a winner. No. If everybody's a winner, everybody's a what? Right. Except in one place that I know of. And that's the kingdom of God. It's the only place it works out. Why? Good question. Paul embraced God's call to preach the richness of Christ everywhere he went. Now, this is the same call, mind you, that Jesus has put on each one of our lives. Your point of birth is to spread the word of God and to worship him. I know that's hard for us. You can attach other things past that when you're doing that, but if you're not doing that, everything you're doing is keeping you from that. Is that too much of a circle? But before we can even look at what's wrong with that, where the church went, how we fix it in our own lives, we need to understand a few things. The core problem isn't the fact that we're lukewarm, half-hearted, or even stagnant Christians in this country. The crux of it all is why we are that way. And it's because we have an inaccurate view of who God is, most of us. We've either been taught he's too hard or he's too soft. God is a very balanced dude, exceptionally balanced, more balanced than any Buddhist you'll ever meet. There are times he's exceptionally harsh, and there are times he's exceptionally not. And then there's times in between, but you know who gets to choose that? God. And only God. But we put our place ahead of that. We think we get to tell God how it is. And not just there, a lot of places, right? We know this. I mean, if we're going to be honest, we know this is a problem. We see him as a benevolent being who is satisfied when people manage. They just happen to manage to fit God into their normal life. Some small way, God shows up. Now I'm a Christian because I acknowledge God for this hour, this day of the week. We forget that God never had an identity crisis. He doesn't require us to fit him in. He knows that he's great. He also knows and demands, scripturally, that he be the center of our lives. Not a security blanket, not a pacifier, not a sugar daddy, not a convenience, not our get out of hell card. And I read this Bible, and I don't know about you, I can't get enough of it personally, and maybe I'm deranged or something, but every time I read the four Gospels, I encounter something different about Jesus I had never seen before. And most noticeably currently, as I'm looking at the humility of our God, who didn't need to be. I mean, this is the guy who could snap his finger and you're turned into a frog or disappear or hot lava fall out of the sky or something. I mean, I believe 2,000 years ago, God could have made a baby Grant drop on somebody if he wanted to. Now, this is important for me and soldiers, I think, retired military in particular. Just because we can rip somebody's head off doesn't mean we should. It means sometimes taking crap from weak people. It means not rearranging someone's face when they're disrespectful. Because they live in a different world. They don't understand that that's how close they came to death. We're supposed to be more Jesus in that moment. It is hard, but real humility is having strength and being able to control it. It's not the fake crap people call humility. Like, there's a lot of people, I thought they were actually nice people until I saw them in stress, and I realized that's just a front. That's some kind of fake church face that they wear. They're actually assholes, really. And I didn't know it. I thought they were nice people. And there was just one moment where I'm sitting there, and I'm literally looking through them, and I realized I hit that, I'm not pointing at you, Nikki, I'm pointing at Jesus. I hit that moment where they were no longer human, they were just an obstacle, you know what I mean? And it was like, okay, I clearly lack some humility in this moment. Which is kind of what got me going on this journey about what is Jesus to me? And this is what Jesus is to me. You're going to have to figure out who Jesus is to you. What is it that he brings out in you? What is it that he's exercising or strengthening or stretching in you? Are you running from it or are you embracing it? Are you struggling with it? Just for complete clarity, I'm struggling with it. Like, I'm coming up here and I'm telling you while I'm on the journey. I haven't finished this one yet. And every day there's another opportunity to put up with crap from somebody else I shouldn't have to put up with crap from. Every single day. And it's like, you must really hate me, God. No, I love you. You know, it's like, why can't you be like a human parent? Just give me everything I demand for bad behavior. Talk me through it. No, my God smacks me. So I started looking at Jesus. What is it I'm missing about this guy? Jesus came humbly as a servant. How many of you walk into any room feeling like a servant? Or are you just waiting to see who's going to serve you? But I also love how he's a servant and he's humble. But he never once begged for us to give him one little small piece of us. He didn't beg us. He didn't request it from us. He didn't say, please, for your benefit, just fit me in where you can, please. Please. No. No, he commands everything from you, period. Everything that's you, everything you possess, everything you are is his. He owns it. You are his slave. He is your master. He is your Lord. Or he's not. We forget that God has never once had an identity crisis. Never once. Not once. He's always known who he is. And if people didn't know, he gave them the extra names. Like, we know he's got like 27 nicknames that he described for himself. Jehovah this. I don't know all his nicknames, guys. I'm sorry. I know Jehovah Jireh and Jehovah Nisi and Jehovah Sneaky. Like the only three I know. Ephesians 3:10 reads that children of God display God's manifold wisdom. If you're focused on being like Jesus, humility and wisdom kind of walk hand in hand. Because you're in a response mode, not a reaction mode. When you're living through a prideful, self-centered type of Christianity, you're in a reaction mode, never a response mode. And part of the way, if you look at Jesus, Jesus is constantly engaging with people who hate him, people who call him names, people who are plotting on him, people who gossip about him, people who just literally want to kill him. And you don't catch from Jesus that he's in a reaction mode. I see him in his humble response mode. Always. Now, don't get me wrong. He out-talks them every step of the way. He puts them in their place, as he should. He just doesn't do it with hate. He does it with wisdom, intellect, and love. I love Jesus. Like, he's like Bugs Bunny, only better. Like Bugs Bunny was the best cartoon character because to get away with everything. You couldn't even put it on TV anymore. He was like the first sarcastic jerk cartoon ever, and I loved him. And then I noticed that Jesus does a lot of the same things. It's true. Jesus is supposed to be refracted by us into 1,000 colors, into 1,000 different ways, because there are so many different personality types in this world. There are so many different types of people, and no one person can reach all of them, but all of us can reach all of them. And so when we're holding back a reflection of Jesus, we're refracting that light of beautiful color out into the world. When we're holding back on that because we've made our Christianity simply about us, we're depriving the world of one of the greatest gifts ever, you. You are the greatest gift to this world. You are. By the way, it's AJ's birthday tomorrow. Help me sing happy birthday to AJ. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. Yeah. Happy birthday, dear J.A. Happy birthday to you. God's blessings on you. I can't do it. Happy birthday, AJ. She helped me make you uncomfortable today. We're a good team like that, actually. Look at your neighbor and say, you're a special light full of color. I had so much, you're a special light full of color. That one part is why I didn't want to record tonight, because I had jokes. Have you ever watched American Idol? Who ever watched American Idol or America's Got Talent or any of those other cheesy butt shows that are annoying? I only watch them because I love Simon Cowell, so if Simon Cowell's on it, I'll watch it. The rest of those judges I don't really care for, but I love him because he tells the truth. Doesn't even hold back. Huh? Well, that's because he got married. I think she mellowed him out a little bit or something. He used to be a lot more fun before he married her, I'll tell you that. Two most honest guys in Hollywood has got to be him and then the chef guy, Hell's Kitchen guy. I want to hang out with them. Just a night on the town with those two dudes. I feel like if Anthony Bourdain was still alive, I'd throw him in there too. We would have fun. The four of us would have an amazing, I may not come back, but we'd have fun. All those little reality talent search reality shows, some of the contests look like they were born to shine. You know what I mean? They're just really pretty people. They have lots of talent. And on stage, they appear confident and self-possessed. But the people who really stand out, to me anyways, the people I tend to remember are the ones who surprise me. Clay Aikens would be one. When that little dork got up on stage, I'm like, there's no way this kid can sing. He had pipes, right? He still ended up being a little dork, but whatever. I didn't expect it. Kelly Clarkson, I didn't expect her to be able to sing. I mean, the list goes on and on. These people that got up on that stage, the really heavy black kid who didn't win against Clay Aikens, who was better than Clay Aikens. Yeah. That kid's voice, oh my gosh. But he didn't look the part, and that was about selling albums. Like that show is really just about, whatever. But anyways, so many people would get up on the stage, and I was amazed how many I would be like, oh, this person's going to like carry it. They're going to get it. And 9 times out of 10, we would watch the weirdest people win, that night, or the person you just didn't expect. And yes, I like pretty people, so I watched that show just so I could get a hint of that, and there was none of that. But I do like watching people you don't expect to get ahead, because it proves to me that everybody has opportunity. The question is, do you apply yourself and do you take the risk? Because opportunity is what you make it. The hand you're dealt, how do you play it? You can complain about it, whine about how unfair stuff is, or you do something with what you got. And if everybody poured all the energy they do into complaining and protesting and having a problem with stuff into becoming something, they'd be incredible. Big if, though. I love it when I saw that old Italian guy, Jewish guy, who sang That song, she had a... When he got up, I didn't, not only did I not expect him to be funny, I didn't think he could do a song. You know, and this guy was so multi-talented. And then I looked up the rest of his music. He had like a whole album. And he traveled around to nursing homes bringing joy to other old people, singing really inappropriate things. And I enjoy a good inappropriate thing once in a while, thank you very much. I'm not so straight-laced that I can't. That's called being fake. And Christians aren't called to be that either. No one here is so sweet that naughty words are going to melt them or hurt them. And if they are, maybe stop doing Harry Potter. Oh, but those ones we like, so it's okay. See, isn't it funny how you give permission to the things that you like and then criticize people for the things that they do that you don't like? Guess who's not supposed to do that? Us. Christians, that's right. Guess what Christians have done really well for the last couple hundred years? Just that. Nobody has a right to take your free will away. God wouldn't. Humans can't either. They are trying. But Christians do a really good job of doing it to people too. It's just the shoe's on the other foot now, and people are okay with it because it's not Christians doing it, but they're doing everything Christians did in the 90s and the 80s. Exactly, by the way. Just as arrogant, just as self-centered, just as self-assured, just as narcissistic. But now it's okay because it's coming from the world. Even Christians are embracing it. I tend to remember the people who surprise me on those shows. I tend to remember people who work hard to achieve something. I never remember anybody who's given anything. There is something about meritocracy of people who aren't afraid to put the work in to become something. And Christians think they come into this world and it's not just like that. But it is exactly just like that. If you want to have a good Christian walk, you put the work in. You want to have a strong relationship with him, you spend time with him. You want to think like him, you read the Bible, you pray, you stop consuming the world and you consume Jesus. Or you don't. And I can't stress this enough. If you choose to not, don't whine about it. You made a choice. Be okay with the repercussions. And learn and grow in wisdom. Because that's how it happens. You analyze your choices. You don't make a pass for it. You don't make an excuse for it. You don't say, well, this happened to me, so I have special permission, however you frame in your mind, to do that. No, Christian. You're an overcomer. You're supposed to gain wisdom and grow and mature. And you might have to do something 50 times, but on that 51st time, you're going to get it. If you keep trying, if you keep going, if you learn, if you mature, if you look at your mistakes and look at the history of carnage behind you and say, is this just my offense in my mouth? Or is everybody else to blame? You're never going to look, I hope, anyways, my hope is you never look like an American Idol winner. The perfect face, the one that fits best on the album cover. I hope you come bruised and battered just like me, and you're a mess, and people are amazed that you even showed up. They're amazed that you made it to the table. They're amazed that you're in the fight. They're amazed that you are so steadfast. They've seen you get beat up time and time again, but you keep coming, and they know you keep coming because they know that's the kind of personal quality and integrity you are. That is who I hope you become. No matter how bad life gets. You just keep coming back. You're so stinking tenacious that nothing can distract you from his purpose for your life, his will for your life. Not even you. I was watching it again just a little while ago. Well, I think it's America's Got Talent is what I was watching, but I'm looking at all these people, and it's like half of them don't even look like they prepped for it. You know? They just come with whatever they got, and they try to make it work. Their props are cheap, whatever. One guy forgot his props. Oh, wait, no, that was Carrot Top. That got stolen. Never mind, that was enjoyable. I love it when the crowd goes berserk, too, when someone who looks like they can't do anything, like, why are they even on this stage? And they do this the one girl was, like, standing on her hands, shooting a bow with her feet, but her feet were backwards, and she's looking like this, and she hits the bullseye. I didn't think anybody could do that, let alone this tiny little petite girl. And I freaked out, man. I was like, yeah, that is amazing. Now, if William Tell or like the guy, what's his name, that played Arrow, had gone up and done that, I probably wouldn't have been as impressed. If he can't shoot a bow, I'd be disappointed. What's funny is the moment some people open their mouths, we realize just how amazing they are. The moment you have conflict resolution, an argument, a fight, a joke, the moment you walk the extra mile, the moment it's not only about you, you find people that are incredible. They'll blow your mind if you just let them be them, mind you, not your version of them. That's you trying to be God, by the way. Well, in a similar way, each of us has a special place or a calling in God. We're probably not qualified for it, honestly. Probably can't do it without him. And like a good parent, he trains his children. He lets you fail. He lets you succeed. He cheers you on. He lets you get hurt, skin your knee. Thank God. God, yeah, no. How do I say that? I'm very thankful that God's not a helicopter parent. I would never have grown. We got to experience some pain and some disappointment to get to maturity. All of you who've been addicts or in jail or had some really bad upbringings in your past, broken families and whatnot, you know pain teaches you. It's a great, great teacher. It's not my favorite, but it does work. When you avoid that, you avoid maturity. When you avoid that, you avoid God refining you. I know that's exciting, I can tell. When we do what he's put in us to do, the world changes because God's purpose are being carried out. And it can be as simple as you just saying hi to someone, you actually giving money to one of these people who's begging on the street, starting a conversation. You don't know. You don't know until you're just open to whatever he directs you. But as long as your mind's filled with all this noise, you will miss every opportunity laid before you. It'll be the hindsight BS, which I hate hindsight. You'll be like, oh, I should have done that. And you're like miles away. But you were so busy worrying about what somebody thought or somebody said or some mistake or blah, 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 that you didn't see it. You caught it out of the corner of your eye maybe, and you're driving down the road like, oh, I should have helped that person. Distraction will destroy us.
What's that saying? Hindsight is 20/20 or something like that?
Yes, and I really hate hindsight. It is the most. I want foresight. I want to have the wisdom to see it before it comes. You know. The Apostle Paul knew that he was called to preach the riches of Christ, and he embraced that call by doing what God had put within him to do. And he changed the world as a result. And it wasn't easy. If you read the story of Paul, I mean, his head was bashed in. He was thrown over a cliff. He was bitten by snakes. He was shipwrecked. He's put in jail. What else? I mean, do you need any more? This guy was a superstar. I'm sorry. This guy was a superstar. Like, everybody knew who Saul was. He was the kind of guy that when he walked, you made sure that everything was just right, perfectly so. That you were the best Jew that you could be. He'd come around that corner, people stopped, man. Like, he had a type of an authority and a respect that most people would kill for. The downside of that is everybody also knew somebody that he killed, who was responsible for killing. He wasn't just popular out of like a good type of respect. He was popular out of fear. I'm afraid to be myself around Paul because he might report me or he might chastise me or he might. Have you been around people like that, Christians? Used to be Christians that were like that. Now, not so much. There's another group of people you just don't want to be around because if I say the wrong thing, I'm going to get an hour-long lecture about how I didn't do this right. Like Christians used to. Interesting, that to me. I'm foolish enough to think we can change the world. I really do think Christians can change the world. I don't know what it's going to take, per se. But I think until we're honest with ourselves and we're working on ourselves, I don't think we're going to go very far or do very much. I think we're going to, I'm concerned that we'll be the same type of Christians our parents and grandparents were, where they pat themselves on the back for going to protest this or that, but their lives weren't really transformed and changed. Are they nice people? Do they still love to the extent of being dangerous? You know what I mean? Like, there's just Christian behaviors I don't want. I don't want to just sit in church, go through life, struggle, be fake when I need to be fake, and be real around people who aren't in church. I don't want to have a special, different life, like I'm a different person at home than I am at church. That drives me crazy with Christians. And some of you have experienced that, and we talked about it jokingly before, but your parents fight the whole way to church. I'm not saying everybody's did. Mine did. We used to. And then we're supposed to come in the building. We're pastors, but we're supposed to act like everything's just fine and perfect. Got our church face on now. No problems here. I think Christians are the type of people that things we do should be remembered 1,000 years from now. Instead, what we have is we have a bunch of buildings that are set up as monuments for something God once upon a time did. What we need is to be living monuments of what he's doing. Now, here, today, tomorrow. And it's really hard because you got to stop feeling sorry for yourself. That's the key, by the way. Probably should have started with that. As long as you hold yourself above everybody else thinking that somehow you're so special in your drama and all your pain and all your hurt, you're never going to get anywhere beyond that because that's your marker. That's your badge. That's your God, for lack of another term. Otherwise, you'd be willing to set it down and not worship it and talk about it and tell everybody about it and be about it. Some people, their entire personality is just about their offenses and their pride and their it's not supposed to be Christians. Some Christians, it's about the church they go to. Certain church, and I won't mention in California, the badge of honor is simply going to the church. Meanwhile, they're kicking people out of the church, telling them to please go be a Christian and stop coming here. Go to another state. But no, we want to be around the influence because we don't know how to cultivate it ourselves. So over the next few weeks, the wisdom we're going to talk about is in this area. We're going to take a look at Luke, specifically the part about be aware, because I'm telling you as your pastor, be aware. Now, anybody who's been here for any length of time said, I'm not going to preach about the end times, I'm not worried about it. I'm still not worried about the last days or the last day, but we are in the end times. There's no doubt. The moment Jesus died on that cross, we entered into the end times. But now you should be aware. This is not a time to be lackadaisical, lukewarm, let your faith sit on the wayside, because stuff's amping up. From this point moving forward, things are going to move very fast. And if you're not solid, it's going to be hard to stay with the program. It's going to be very hard to follow God. Like I don't know how to explain it, and I'm not going to openly say stuff because then prophetic people are going to email me and we're going to have these weird conversations about what they see, and I don't want to do that. This is what I will say, though. If you're not sure of your faith now, please make sure of your faith. Because if all it took was 3 months of being locked in your house to throw you off and to put you into something, there's a lot worse things coming, guys. And don't fool yourself into thinking it's not. That would be the most foolish thing you could possibly do, I think. Your faith is going to be tested, man. Like never before. For some of you, different reasons. But we need each other. Most of you guys who are politically oriented on the right, one, stop. Put your politics somewhere else. Do not make them a part of your identity. They are a responsibility, simply. For you guys, it's going to be really hard because 11% of America now is illegal aliens that none of us really voted for or wanted in this country. I still don't want them in this country. They don't belong here. There's a legal way to make that happen, and the reason for that isn't because of the people. It's the integration process and what it does to America moving forward for 5 years. I'm not going to go through how that all works. If you don't know that now, you should research that for yourself. For others of you, it's going to be the backlash for all the things that have happened the last 3 years, and there's going to be a comeuppance for that politically. So are we still going to follow that stuff? Let that be really what we think? The liberal agenda or the conservative agenda? Christians? No. No. If I could get on my knees and beg you to stop, I would. God, you wanted me to keep my mouth shut about trying to educate people on what history looks like and why things happen and why the right does this and the left does it? Stop being political. People are blaming me. It's my job to educate this church and decide the direction of this church. Nobody else's job. It's the only job I got. Literally. Anybody else could do it. A nutless monkey could come up here and teach. But to actually discern the will of the Lord, I suck at that most of the time for myself, let alone us. But the one thing I know is that if your allegiance is to anything other than the kingdom, there's a failing, and I will fight that. And I said that 2 weeks ago, and I'll keep saying it. I will continue to fight it. I fought it 3 years ago, 4 years ago. I'll fight it moving forward. Not one person's political agenda supersedes the message of Jesus Christ. And if your foundation isn't that, you're probably not a Christian. So let's change it. Let's go before him with our hearts open and say, circumcise it, Lord. Take what isn't you out. Show me what I'm following, my hate and my offense, my arrogance and my pride. These things have to be laid down. My fear, my need for retribution. How can the church look like Christ if your politics come first? Cannot. And oh my God, how offended you'll be when you're pointed out how wrong you are. Trust me on that. In Ephesians 3, Paul writes that we, the children of God, are supposed to display God's manifold wisdom. God's manifold wisdom. Only God's manifold wisdom, not yours, not mine. No one in Washington, no one in another country. God's. Simple. It's really not that hard, right? So what is manifold wisdom? Manifold wisdom is wisdom that has many different forms and elements. And this is going to be the more challenging thing. It's not as simply black and white as yes and no. Wisdom requires something of us. It requires ingenuity. It requires faith. It requires our ability to stretch beyond our logic and into the supernatural realm. It requires us to lay aside our agenda. It requires us to lay down our opinion. It requires us to lay down a lot of us. Because oftentimes, and I'm speaking for myself, when God displays his form of wisdom, it seems quite illogical to me. And so the urge there is to reject it and find a better way, or a different way, or ignore it altogether and act like it never happened. Amen? Which is what most of us do, if we're being honest. That's vast. That's huge. That's the kind of wisdom the world doesn't possess. But we keep attacking kingdom problems with worldly wisdom, and we wonder why God's not showing up. We wonder why change isn't happening. We wonder why evil's running rampant in our country. We wonder why innocent people are being killed by literally the hundreds every week. We gave our country over to politicians who only give a crap about their bank accounts. Not you. Democrats have been crying out racism for freaking 60 years. Republicans beating people up for abortion. They're still doing it, and you're still following it. That's how dumb we are. We actually think that's going to make a difference, and it hasn't. God unifies, politics divides. You and I are supposed to display this vast, massive thing that's so huge, and a couple of memorized script lines from our political preferences isn't going to solve anything. It isn't some little tiny candle of light. God's light is multifaceted, colors you haven't even seen yet. It goes beyond the universe, beyond expectations, beyond understanding. It is so vast, we don't even have a word that properly encompasses it. It's like as big as our entire solar system and all the planets, and then the next one, and then the next one. And the universe is still expanding, so I suspect the next one. And maybe that's God's manifold wisdom. That's how huge it is. Or maybe it's ever expanding. I don't know. Jesus is refracted by the church, though. Supposedly, we're supposed to be this thing that takes this vast, multifaceted, multicolored wisdom, and it's us that refracts that into the earth to change the earth. Because we live that way, and we think that way, and we talk that way. But when it's an alien language or an alien concept, it's pretty hard to line up with it. So what do? We fall into our comfortable categories of what we think we understand. And pat ourselves on the back for the little that we've done. All we've done is grab basically a societal titty and popped it in our mouth. Or a pacifier, however you want to use it. Self-soothing ourselves, saying, "Oh, we've done something." You've done nothing except for add to evil. You've gone against Christ, and you've gone against the church because you lined up with something that isn't him. It's not noble. Every person in this room and every person outside this room is special light of color. You're unique. Your particular shade of whatever color you are is unique. It's beautiful. I mean, you should be proud of it. You shouldn't subdue it. You shouldn't hide it. You shouldn't make less of yourself. If someone's uncomfortable because you got blessed, let them be. That's between them and God. Don't steal that journey for them. Like, if you avoid offending someone because they're easily offended, you're robbing them of the opportunity to struggle with God. Be you. Be loud. Be proud. Be bold. Don't hold back. Don't police up your behavior just because one person is controlling. The weak don't control the mighty. The mighty choose to help the weak. And if each one of our colors is important, then each one of our unique destinies is just as important. We need to figure out the gifting and the calling that God has placed in each one of us, that unique beauty, and not compete with it, not correct it, not tell it how we think it should be, but embrace it and journey it and notice it in each other and say, wow, that's so like you. Like, I love what you're doing. I'm so proud of how far you've come. I am amazed at what you can do. Compliment one another. Really actually compliment one another for greatness. I don't know when chastising people for greatness became acceptable. I find it repugnant. It's vile, the weakest, most inhumane thing I've ever encountered in my life. Then if you get around really insecure people, they just underbite you and say really horrible things under their breath about you. That's my favorite. It's like, I'm so sorry you're so insecure. Like, my presence make you that insecure? Because you got to do that? That's sad. God made every single person in this room great. Every single person in this room unique. Every single person in this room special. And we need to stop squashing that. We need to stop allowing it to be squashed. If someone's doing that to someone, stick up for the person being squashed, not the bully who's acting all virtuous, but the person who's actually trying to become something. We need to encourage that, feed that. That's how the world changes. Each person becoming the fullness to the greatest capacity that they were created to be. God doesn't make things mediocre. He doesn't do little. Well, I mean, he makes little things like atoms and quarks and stuff like that, but he made everything with intention. Nothing's by accident. And if you want to be weak and lowly in the bad way, that is your choice. But please, stop picking on people for choosing greatness and actually want to apply themselves and work at something or become great at something. Encourage that. Celebrate it, because that's what Christ did. That's what the Bible does. It doesn't hold people back from greatness. It breeds greatness. So hopefully, as we begin to understand that wisdom, we can learn what it's like to reflect him according to his purposes and not ours. And that's what we'll talk about next week when we look at Luke and expository teaching, is how do we be aware? How do we keep our heads while everybody around us is losing theirs? How do we be the light in the darkness? How do we be the salt on the earth? How? I can go on with all these metaphors if I need to. Or if you're content with the way things are in your life, then please don't listen to this. But if you're not, instead of trying to find ways it's wrong, try it once. What do you got to lose? How much different would your health be if your thoughts were healthy? How much happier would you be? How much joy would you find in the world? Or, other things. And again, I can't stress this enough. If your way is working for you, please ignore everything I said. But if it's not, and if you want to spread the kingdom of God, then please, can we begin to embrace our own greatness? Can we begin to work on our hearts and on our souls? Can we begin to work on our attitudes and the way we think? Can we make it look like Jesus and not like somebody else? That's my encouragement to you. I hope it works out. And, same bat time, same bat channel next week. And if you don't like the teaching, Jason Albert's right there. Let's pray. Father, I thank you so much, Lord, that you put us in this world. Father, I thank you that we have been created specifically for a time such as this. This is not accidental. You're not caught unaware. You have a purpose and you have a plan. Well, Father, I ask that we would figure out what the heck that purpose and plan is. Whether it's to, whatever you have for each one of us, Lord. I ask that we'd explore that. But first, I ask we'd explore our own hearts. Father, give us every opportunity to be offended and to be prideful so that we can be freed of those things. In Jesus' name.